Welcome to the iGaming Player Podcast, where the experts in sports betting, iGaming, and casino gambling offer their wisdom and opinions. I'm Roger Gross, the president of iGaming Player, and today our guest is Joe Asher, the president of sports betting for iGT, on how to bet the Super Bowl and why prop and in-play wagering make it more fun. Welcome to the iGaming Player Podcast. Our guest today is Joe Asher, the president of sports betting for iGT. Joe, it's great to see you again. It's been quite some time.
Great to see you. Great to see you, Roger. First time I've seen you in this office.
Yeah, absolutely. The first time we've talked with your new title here. We've been through the William Hill thing, even before that with Brandywine Gaming. So it's really nice to be able to get together with you and follow you through this really incredible career you've had so far. So let's talk about the Super Bowl. It's the biggest betting event of the year coming up just in a few days. So give us your experience down the year, and how do you think this year is going to be different in any way?
Well, look, it's a good matchup. It's a good matchup.
Sure.
Maybe lacking some of the marquee names that might have been a little more appealing, perhaps,
right,
to customers. But I think it's a great matchup. Early on, at least, looks like the public's going to be laying the points on the Rams and betting the Bengals on the money line.
Right.
And so the sports books will be hoping it's Rams by 1, 2, or 3, I'd guess. Mm-hmm. But you can certainly make the case for either team. The playoffs this year in the NFL.
Oh, they were incredible.
Yeah, it's been great.
I don't know about you, but I'm glad we're not seeing the Buccaneers and the Chiefs in again. I mean, there's the marquee names you were discussing, but I like to see these new players get in there, especially Stafford, who's never been in a Super Bowl in all his great career as well.
Well, it's funny. When I was driving over here, I was listening to the radio, and someone made the point that given all that he went through in Detroit, right, it probably really prepared him well for this. And Burrow's just been an unbelievable phenomenon.
Sure.
And what he's done in the playoffs is incredible.
Let's talk about the different kind of bets. Obviously, people bet who's going to win the game, but there's so many different prop bets and things like that in the playoffs. So give us some of the bets that you have seen people make in the past.
Oh, sure. I mean, look, it starts with the coin flip,
right,
and then goes
right,
to MVP
mm-hmm,
of the game,
right,
and everything in between. Prop bets are really, really popular in the Super Bowl. They're offered throughout the year, but the one day when they're a significant portion of the betting activity is on the Super Bowl. And it spans everything from alternate point spreads to, passes, passing yards,
mm-hmm,
rushing yards, receptions. You have the cross sports parlays as well.
Right.
Number of rushing yards for somebody versus points that LeBron's going to score,
right,
kind of thing.
Exactly right.
So it crosses sports, mm-hmm, as well, and it really just people like it for the entertainment and to have sort of the an interest throughout the game, regardless if they'll still bet whether it's laying the points or taking the points or the money line, but then all these little prop bets throughout the game I think make it particularly interesting for people. Sure.
Let's talk about parlays. I mean, parlays is what you sportsbook operators like, right? You make some of your good money there, but they're also really fun. I know that first weekend of the playoffs, I bet four things, and I won 3 of them, and I thought I was going to win the 4th one, and it came down to the wire. But they're excited.
Yeah, look, it's a way for customers to bet a little and win a lot. Right. That's really
right.
That's really it. They've always been popular. I think all the more so now with different types of parlays and parlaying individual player
right,
performance, mm-hmm, to the outcome of the game. You have the parlay cards, the traditional Nevada style parlay cards. You have obviously parlays and parlay card type offerings on mobile as well, mm-hmm, but it really does go to that sort of core jackpot type of a thing where you bet a bet a little and win a lot.
Right, yeah, and the odds aren't always in your favor, but then, as you said, you can win a lot. And it's almost like winning a jackpot on a slot machine.
Yeah, no, look, obviously in most forms of gambling, the odds are not in your favor, right? In sports betting, the theoretical margin is lower than perhaps in some other forms of gambling, but it's about, and it's much in sports betting. I think it's almost as much the satisfaction of being right.
Right. Sure.
It's sort of a corollary, to the money, right? It's a way to back your conviction, and to talk about it with your friends and so forth, and then if it plays out, then obviously you win money, and think of it like if you can, and it just kind of makes it more interesting to watch the game. You go to a movie, you're out the $15, whether you like the movie or not. It's gonna, you'll be there for a couple hours. You can bet the game, and you might lose the same amount of money, but you also might win, and it gives you that that interest, that rooting interest, and reason to stay engaged throughout the game. Right,
exactly. So you mentioned the MVP. I think last year in the Super Bowl, if you bet Burrows or Mahomes, not Burrows, but Brady or Mahomes, I think you probably had a good chance of winning one of those bets. But this year it's maybe a little different with Stafford and Burrows. They're both in their first Super Bowls, and they have some great players around them as well. Do you think there's more of a chance that somebody other than the quarterback might win the MVP this year?
Well, yeah, I mean, it always sets up for the quarterback to be MVP because he's going to touch the ball more than any other player on his team. But certainly the wide receivers are in contention this year. You've got obviously Kupp and OBJ on the one side, Chase on the other. Mixon, if he has a big running game, you could certainly see Aaron Donald on the Rams defense if they're really turn out to be dominant in the game. But it, by definition, almost sets up naturally for one of the quarterbacks, and you could obviously if Cincinnati comes through and Burrow has a big game, then pretty easy to see him being the MVP.
But you get a real great odds for the defensive player, Donald or Von Miller. I understand has some really good odds as well, but that's a long shot, pretty much, I guess. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. Just because it's how many interceptions are you really going to get, or how many sacks, and is the defense really going to dominate the game when both of these teams can put up points?
Yeah, no question. So we have a lot of new markets this year in the betting community right now for the first time. New York, Louisiana just came on the other day. Do you think there's going to be different betting patterns in those markets because it's the first time they're actually able to make legal sports bets?
Maybe not necessarily in this year's Super Bowl because you don't have Ohio online and you don't have California where you'd have a really heavy regional bias. So I wouldn't expect it to be that different. Although in traditionally, yes, there is the regional bias. In we see it in Rhode Island when the Patriots were running good. People are betting the Patriots. But I also, my experience in Delaware was, when the Eagles were running good, everybody was betting the Eagles. And when they were running bad, everybody was betting against them. So the bias isn't necessarily always in favor of the local team.
But so you think in some of these new states, they're just going to bet who's going to win the game and maybe a few props?
No, I think that's what you're going to see. More generally, they'll bet either on the money line who's going to win the game or the point spread. And then a number of props to go with it. Right,
no question. So with the NFL season over after the Super Bowl, of course, the next thing you look through is to the March Madness. It's how big is that going to be this year? Now that again, there's sports betting all over the country.
Yeah, look, I think March Madness is always a big event. And it really was almost like the first indication, of COVID when you go back to it being canceled in 2020. And so, I think, it'll probably, there'll be a lot of interest in March Madness this year as, we're kind of coming to the end of COVID restrictions and things of that nature. and of course you have all these new states with sports betting. So March Madness would be a big event, and sports just seems to be a bigger and bigger part of the mainstream news these days as well, and I think that helps helps drive the interest in sports betting.
Sure. And also, football is always the top sport, and now we've got a couple of other leagues starting up. We've got the USFL starting up in the spring. There's this indoor football league that's really ramping up now as well. Do you think these, because there's so much more legal sports betting, I think they have a better chance of success?
It's a good question, Roger. The answer is I don't know, because up till now, none of these alternative leagues have made it.
Right.
It's we have our football season, season ends, and people kind of take a little bit of a break,
right,
sort of mentally and from watching, and then, they tune into March Madness.
Right.
And so, it's, I think, just unclear whether there is a market in the country for year-round professional football.
Sure.
There was a little bit of interest in the AAF. I've been to an arena game. It's kind of like a fun thing to do,
right,
but it's just not that. It's not even anywhere close to being on par with watching the NFL.
Right, and it seems like even though the USL, they're bringing the team names back and the logos, but they're playing it in one place, right? I mean, that's got to make those cities not that much interested in it if they're not going to actually be in town.
Well, and again it comes and then it comes down to the players,
right? Of course,
there's in the NFL in particular, I think there's always a storyline. Now we're coming to an interesting point in the NFL where some of these top quarterbacks, who we've seen for the last 15, 20 years are retiring. Roethlisberger, and now of course Brady. And then we'll see what happens with Aaron Rodgers, and you have these personalities that are almost that are really independent of or derivative of the game, I guess. And you're not going to have that in these alternative leagues, right? I mean, I just over the Christmas break I took one of my daughters to see the movie about Kurt Warner and tracing his play in the Arena League. But that's pretty rarity, and even when he was in the Arena League, he wasn't that big of a deal, right? It was when he got the shot with the Rams, because Vermeil believed him.
Yeah, no question. Hope you enjoyed the iGaming Player podcast. To learn more about the Super Bowl and how to get the best of it, visit iGamingPlayer.com to view the many betting options at Super Bowl 56. So we'll see you next time on the iGP podcast.